Thank you very much. I'm really humbled by this invitation to be here at TED. Also, I'm going to take a couple of seconds to acknowledge my parents and wife and children who came here from Ohio and Indiana to be part of this. And since I have this stage and thousands of people, I'm going to take a couple of moments to embarrass my son because I love him so much. We lived in Colorado for a couple of years, and Colorado's high desert, very dry air. And my wife and I went out to dinner one evening and decided we kept humidifiers all over the house. And we decided that we were going to go out to eat, and the humidifier ran dry. And my son decided he was going to help the sitter out by refilling the humidifier. And he refilled the humidifier with the most convenient thing for little boys to fill a humidifier with. We were greeted with quite an odor. I love you, son. So I'm here to talk to you about diversity and inclusion. Diversity is one of those things that can help organizations succeed if managed well. And it's one of those things that can be extremely burdensome to organizations that do not know how to manage it well. It's defined as similarities and differences. Now, on December 9th, 2015, the Supreme Court took up the case of Fisher versus the University of Texas. Now, during that case, Judge Antonin Scalia made a comment, and I'm going to play it for you.
There are those who contend that it does not benefit African Americans to get them into the University of Texas where they do not do well, as opposed to having them go to a less advanced school, a slower track school where they do well.
Now, when people heard this comment, we're at Morgan State University. I mean, there are a lot of great, but when people heard this comment, they were upset. I was upset when I heard this comment. But what was equally disturbing are the ways in which Judge Scalia was correct. You see, our viewpoints are made up of our previous experiences, those things we see, what we hear, the people we interact with, the stories that we're told. And an individual who was born in 1936, whose father was a college professor, whose mother was a teacher, who graduated from Georgetown University in 1957, Harvard Law, and sits on the Supreme Court of the United States, is going to have a viewpoint that's just a lot different than someone like myself. I want you to take a look at these, a couple of images behind me. Think about what you see here. Leonardo da Vinci stated that all of our knowledge has its perceptions and origins. Has its origins in perceptions. Now, if I ask you what you see up here, most of you are going to say you see a cube. Now, what's interesting is that we really don't see a cube up here. What we see are 8 circles, and these 8 circles are arranged in such a way that our mind fills in the gaps and creates an image that we are used to based on our previous experiences, our knowledge, the stories that we're told. And for some of us, we're able to fit an enormous amount of information, thoughts inside of that cube. For others, they can only fit a limited number of perspectives, viewpoints, ideas, ways of engaging people inside of this small cube. We have to start engaging ourselves so we're thinking beyond this cube. Take a look at these pictures. There's an exercise I like to do where I've asked people to look at images. I want you to think about a couple of images, people, ideas, jobs. The first one I want you to do is think about a CEO. I want you to think about that person's age, their gender, ethnicity, what they wear to work. How tall are they? Are they male, female? What's their hairstyle? Have you got an image of an individual in your head? Now, I could poll each of you, but that would not be practical. But what I did is I went to Google, Yahoo, and Bing, and I typed in CEO. I did an image search, I did a screenshot of the image search, and I just pasted it right into the slides that you're going to see. So here's what came up. Does this image match what's inside of your head? What message does what we see up on this screen send? What does the lack of what we see on this screen send to individuals? Now, the Supreme Court case was about students, college students. We're at Morgan State University. We know what college students look like. But I want you to just think about college students. Have you got the picture in your head? Here's what came up. Does this match that image? Does this speak to our potential as an organization, as a country, as a community? Next, I wanted you to think about is a doctor, a physician, a surgeon. Got an image? What's the person wear? Male, female, black, white, tall, short, hair color. Here's what came up. Does this match that image in your head? Now, there's one guy up in the corner that's flicking us off because he's upset about the images, but I didn't put these up here. They just are what they are. Next one I want you to think about is a professional athlete. Tall, short, male, female, black, white, hairstyle, uniform. You got the image in your head? Here's what came up. Now, what message does this send? What message do these images send to that little black boy that goes on Google and types CEO and does not see himself reflected? Or a college student, or that little girl that decides she wants to be a CEO and does not see herself reflected. Now, I've got two more that I'm going to put up here. They're not jobs, but they're people. The next one is a white male. Got the image? Here's what came up. Now, when you look at these images, there are some very dangerous individuals up here. I know, I didn't get the images. But we also have Brad Pitt up here twice because I guess he's super white male or something. I don't know. But for the most part, this is a clean-cut group of individuals. Now, we did white male, so now we're going to do black male. What comes up? Take a look at these images. Now, there are not people in jail, but there's another message that's being sent here when we look at this image. I'm going to highlight a few of these for you. About a quarter of these images. What message does it send? Not only what message does it send to that little black boy that types in black male and wants to see how he's reflected, but what message does that send to that little Asian girl that wants to understand what's it like to be black? And she sees half of these images up here with men who are not properly dressed. What message does that send to our future? Now, these images are very confining. They fit into a nice, narrow, closed box. These types of, this way of thinking, these are the reasons that Judge Scalia is correct. And this type of thinking is also how diversity is failing us. We must begin to think beyond the box. Now, I can't leave this talk with the idea that what Judge Scalia said is not representative of someone whose mind is not trapped into a very small and narrow and confining and dangerous box. My team and I decided we were going to take a look at some data. And we wanted to see why Judge Scalia said some of the things he did. We went and decided to look at what are the colleges and universities with the highest graduation rates in this country. And what came up were Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, with graduation rates of African Americans of 97%, 97%, and 98% respectively. Now someone who was born in 1936, whose father was a college professor, whose mother was a teacher, who attended Georgetown University and graduated in 1957, Harvard Law, and sits on the Supreme Court of the United States, may find this hard to believe, but this is fact. This is our society. We must begin to think beyond these boxes. These boxes are narrow, these boxes are unfair, these boxes are confining, but these boxes are absolutely dangerous. You may ask yourself, why does this matter? In 2014, the public school systems in the United States became a majority-minority institution. In 2044, the white population will become a minority in this country. These boxes are critical, and we must understand what's happening. The perceptions that these boxes are sending are detrimental in some cases. See, either indirectly or directly, these boxes have led to perceptions such as African Americans are amazing athletes, but dangerous. That Asians are poor drivers, but STEM wizards. That women are poor money managers, but excellent caregivers. That gays are unfit to serve in the military, but are fashion forward. That Latinos are family-oriented, but gang members. That white men can't jump and are great leaders. We must push beyond these boxes. My wife and I are both graduates of the University of Texas at Austin, where we received our master's degrees. Clap for my wife, because I've been chasing her for 20-some years, and she still can't lose me. My parents raised 5 black boys from nothingness to see each of these boys obtain their undergraduate and master's degrees while they also obtained their master's degrees and bachelor's degrees as working parents. So we circle back. We began to talk about that kid in the humidifier. And I get concerned. I get concerned that people will not be able to see beyond his box. I get concerned that people will see him and not see the potential that he has. I had a white friend say to me that, James, you don't have to worry about your son ending up in Trayvon Martin's situation because of the titles that you hold and the connections that you have. But what my friend did not understand is that I have been followed in stores. What my friend did not understand is I've had guns pointed at me by both police officers and strangers. What my friend did not understand is that I have been detained at a Blockbuster video store by the police for returning a movie to the store. And the manager said I had stolen the movie, returned it to the store, and tried to pay a fine on it. He must have thought I was the dumbest criminal in the world. What my friend did not understand is that I have watched police tanks roll in front of my childhood home, and I have watched my mother harassed by the police as she has unloaded groceries from her car to take them in her house. These boxes are dangerous. These boxes are confining, and they do not allow us to have the future that we need. So I get concerned about raising a black boy in this country that I love. I get concerned that people will not see the man that he can become. I get concerned that he will have to endure what I went through or worse. And although I tell my son to stand up tall, pull his shoulders back, and hold his head high, although I tell him that he always needs to look another man in the eye, although I tell him to choose his words deliberately and to speak articulately, although I tell him to a firm handshake is worth its weight in gold, I tell him to wear a belt at his waist, although I tell him to respect all women, and if I'm not around, find another person in uniform to provide assistance. And although I tell my son to begin every day with his head held high and his shoulders back, you end every day on your knees thanking God for the advantages that you are given. But I get concerned that the people will still not see this young man, who he can become. And it pains me that still in 2016, being black in America, Being black in America means laughing when you don't like the music, when ain't nothing funny. Being black in America means dancing when you don't like the music. It means playing the game when you want to cry. It means bowing your head when you want to run. And it means shutting up when you want to cry, help. So it pains me that I have to tell my son not to look that other man in the eye. Don't say anything when he should be able to look that other man in the eye and say, I am James Edward Barty Page III, and I am still not your target practice. But I have to tell him, don't say anything, son. Don't look that other man in the eye. Just come home. Come home and give your dad a big hug. And tell me about your problems. Tell me about your fears. Just always come home. So we're back to where we started, talking about the Supreme Court of the United States. And we must begin to set goals that will help our community, our city, our country, our world become more accepting of diversity. Of true diversity. And these goals will not be easy. Destroying these boxes will seem impossible at times. We will stumble, we will falter, and we will fail. But a worthy goal is always worth working for. Judge Scalia spoke about his theory of blacks and slower tracks from the mind trapped in a small, confining, narrow, and dangerous box. I had to explain this to my 3 children, the oldest who's off to college next year. My son looked at me with eyes that were both not understanding and fearful. And he went up to his room. He got on his computer and came back downstairs a few minutes later. He put a crumbled piece of paper from his pocket with writing on it. And my beautiful, amazing, intelligent, smart black boy sat on the couch and talked to me about what he had learned in those couple of minutes about the Supreme Court, and asked me about one of my fraternity brothers, Thurgood Marshall. And he began to read from this piece of paper. Here's what he said.
A child born to a black mother in a state like Mississippi has exactly the same rights as a white baby born to the wealthiest person in the United States. It's not true, but I challenge anyone to say it is not a goal worth fighting for. A quote from Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall.
Thank you.
Well done, dear brother. Well done.
Thank you.